You know how you have a few $1 million saved across all your accounts? You look at the statements and you still wonder, do I have enough? That's what happens to smart, diligent savers. I want to start by telling you a story. Way back when I first started my financial planning practice, I was referred to a new client by her CPA in the fall of 2018. We'll call that client Sally. Sally had just lost her husband that summer. Sally had already survived cancer herself several times. To this day, Sally can't be far from a bathroom for longer than about 25 to 30 minutes. Many everyday activities that you and I take for granted are just impossible for her. There's no long car rides. There's certainly no plane trips. There's no trips to the orchestra, which Sally loves. Now, Sally and her husband, we'll call him Mark, they were incredible savers. When I first met Sally, she had about $5 million in her various investment accounts. Despite never having a very large income, through discipline and hard work, they cobbled together millions of dollars as early disciples of Vanguard's cheap mutual funds and saving and investing for decades. Now, there's that old saying that man plans and God laughs. Well, Mark and Sally's discipline built the kind of wealth that to date put Sally almost in the top 1% of wealthiest households in the US. And yet, the money can't buy back the time with her husband or good health from her youth. You can't shop your way back to time or health, even with what is now $9 million thanks to good market returns. So even sizable charitable donations on an annual basis haven't been enough to counteract the tailwinds of good market performance. Sally continues to make more money than she can possibly spend or give away. So I want to be clear that I have incredible respect for Mark and Sally's discipline. I think everyone should save and invest like hell, just like them, because they got an exceptionally bad hand. Most couples won't see themselves in their position, unable to ever really enjoy that kind of hard work and savings that they've amassed over several decades. But everybody with $2 to $5 million should be stopping to ask themselves, wait a minute, if I've already got enough, what can be done to make sure that I don't run out of money? So people with $2 to $5 million saved for retirement should be asking themselves how they plan to avoid running out of money and how they plan to spend enough of their money to enjoy their hard work. It's and, not or. Most people are really good at the first part of the question. They're completely unprepared for the second part. So the skill set to generate the income you have today and the discipline to live beneath your means for a few decades, not only before you retire, but afterwards, and then of course save and invest for a long time, is just hard to turn off. It's really difficult to just flip the switch when you're retired and all of a sudden go from a saver to a spender. So instead of maybe a body in motion stays in motion, I think Newton's first law of wealth would probably be a really great saver is going to be a really frugal spender in retirement. The frugality and concern that you had about the future is probably why you, with $2 to $5 million, have that kind of wealth today. And you can't just flip that switch to turn it off. So it's probably why when you look at your statements, you still feel like it's not enough or that you might need more. I have found that your perspective matters a lot in these situations. So I once had a client, he bought a second home in Naples, Florida. And if there's anywhere in the world that is really good at making you feel small, it might be Naples, Florida. This client was worth about $5 million and shared that he felt poor compared to the other people in Naples, Florida. And relatively speaking, he might have been. But here he was, a smart guy with decent health, a healthy, beautiful, growing family. He was running somebody else's race. He took a long time to stop working, probably longer than the number said he needed to. So that additional money that he was focused on or fixated on amassing, it came at an additional cost, at a very steep price of time that you don't get back. It's less time with your parents, less time with your spouse, your kids, your grandkids. There may be parts of the world that eventually close their doors to you if your health or your body won't allow for long stints on a plane, for example, elevation, strenuous hikes, etc. So it's important to acknowledge the role that work plays in our lives. There's financial security, of course, and then there's the social opportunities, being part of something bigger than yourself, a sense of purpose or identity. These are all incredibly tangible upsides to staying employed. But at some point, your career will end. So how much time do you want to have between the end of your life and the end of your career? What kind of experiences do you want to have today in this version of your body, your family? How does that reconcile with additional time at work? Now, I believe that very few people, once they have a few million dollars, they really need more money. I refuse to believe that they still need more. But what they do need is a concrete plan that helps them see how much they can spend sustainably while supporting the causes and people that they care about. If the plan so happens to reduce their taxes and allows their loved ones to enjoy a larger after-tax inheritance, let's add that in too. Okay, so why don't they already have a plan like that? Well, it could be that they aren't confident in the how if they're planning their own retirement, or they're not sure what comes next. How should they withdraw their assets? Which accounts should they withdraw money from first? When should they take Social Security? Should they take a lump sum from their pension or take the pension itself? Where should their retirement paycheck come from in order to minimize taxes or enjoy what they've saved? How will their spending change over time? Maybe they don't know how they'll fill their days in retirement yet, and it's easier to keep working than it is to figure that part out. Maybe they're working with a financial advisor that doesn't specialize in retirement income planning. The advisor maybe that has been helping them build wealth, like most advisors, isn't an advisor that actually specializes in a decumulation part of life. That advisor may not be an expert in turning your savings into a sustainable retirement paycheck. Or maybe they're overwhelmed by the complexity of the wealth that they've built over the past few decades and just aren't sure where to start. The analysis paralysis, so to speak. Maybe they're legitimately enjoying their career at the moment, or they feel guilty walking away from the income they have, especially when they still have blank to pay for, whether that's a college graduation for a kid or a grandkid, whether they have some big objective at work, a big milestone that they want to hit. I just want to acknowledge that it is totally okay to have worked your tail off for decades to reach your peak earnings and not want to give it up. That's cool. But here's the part most people don't realize or don't like to think about. Someone is going to get the money you don't spend. Some combination of your family, charities, and the government. I want to say that again to make it painfully clear. Your money will go one of three places when you die. The people you care about, the IRS, or charity. If your plan is to leave the money to your loved ones, chances are that the new tax laws are going to give the IRS a big spoonful of those assets anyway. If you're in the state of Pennsylvania or one of the other states with some form of an inheritance or death tax, the state government takes a piece too. I have seen in practice over and over again that inheritances will be taxed at a higher rate than they would have if the retiree used the money themselves. So it's not a universal truth, but it is a truth out there waiting for many Americans with large, especially pre-tax, sometimes known as traditional account balances. It's diligently stashed in traditional IRAs, 401ks, and 403bs. Do you want to leave the money unspent and taxed higher than it would have been if you'd spent the money yourself? I doubt it. Now, I understand the fear involved. You won't know for sure that you had too much money and didn't spend enough until it's checkout time on your very last day on this earth. So that's a perfectly natural way to look at this. But I have an alternative to offer. Your risk of overspending goes down as you age. There's only so many days left on earth for you, and each year you survive means you need fewer dollars to make it through the rest of your life. Chances are, if you've already saved a few $1,000,000, you've won the game. You might prefer to take some chips off the table and generate your retirement income without taking on more market risk. So Buoyant Wealth's retirement income process is built to help people that have already done the hard part. It helps you turn what you've saved into a sustainable paycheck so that you can enjoy your wealth while you still have your health. If this idea resonates with you, I write a short weekly note about retirement decisions without fear or noise, and you can subscribe below if you'd like to think through this phase more clearly. Thanks.